Hi, my name's Michael from the Hobby Man and Hearns Hobbies in Melbourne, Australia. Just wanted to show you a few tricks and techniques and a few products. I wanted to highlight today our range of Green Stuff World dipping inks. You can see several of them here. This is not the entire selection we have, but this is a couple of different varieties of colours, just to show you some of the different things that you can do with it. These are typically used for miniatures. They're highly viscous, highly pigmented dipping inks that are used for speed painting. So if you've got an army of miniatures that you're wanting to paint and you want them to do that in relatively quick time, you can do that with this product. It's really good to get really great results. So typically I'm going to be using this example here, this little Cromlech Halloween monster pumpkin. Now typically with miniatures, what you want to be doing is having essentially 3 layers of paint. You've got your mid-tone, which is the colour that you're painting in, and then you've got recesses, which are usually darker, that show off the shadows, and then the highlights, which are the lighter portions, and the lighter portions is you know, the raised areas. So essentially you're doing lots of painting and lots of paint mixing potentially. The benefit of the dipping inks is that you get all 3 layers in one hit. So what happens with these, they have properties whereby they will sink into the recesses, and those portions get deepened in their colour, and they run off the higher portions of the model, adding to the highlights. You can still go over them later on and do a little bit more detailing and that kind of thing, but you don't have to. So it's a good way of getting a lot done a lot faster, particularly if you've got a whole army that you want to paint for your gaming, for your miniatures, and you're maybe a little bit like me, a little bit time poor sometimes. I'm using this Cromlech pumpkin as an example. Now what I've actually done with this one is I've done a little bit of base painting on this one. I made it a monochrome, as you can see here, and what I did was I did what's called object source lighting. So I painted this about 85%, 90% with the airbrush, and you can see if I look at it from this direction, the underside, it's fairly dark. When you look at it from the other direction, from the top, looking down on it, it's quite a lot lighter. And what you get is, when you look at it from top to bottom, is you get those shadows and highlights. Then what I've gone and done is just gone with a little bit of black paint into some of those recesses, particularly around the eyes, and then picked out a few highlights here and there, like on the teeth and some bits on the top. Now with dipping inks, they work best on a purely white base. So this is it's a little bit different to what I'll be doing here with this one. But I'm going to be using just one colour today, and that's this one here. We'll see how I go about doing some green maybe later too. But I'm going to be using the misted yellow in the dipping ink in the Green Stuff World range. And yeah, we'll see how we go. I'll be doing sort of the pumpkin type portions. So as I said, I have got some of those shadows already. Remember, with miniature painting, it's all about contrast. You want to create contrast, because when you're dealing with objects this size, when they're quite small, you want to increase the amount of contrast to what you would normally typically see with your own eyes, because it will draw your eyes in, and you'll be able to pick out details a lot better in the model. I'll show you a close-up of that dipping ink. Just bear with me a moment. There we go. It's that one there, Green Stuff World dipping inks, misted yellow. And I'll just go back to my pumpkin view. There we go. Now I've got a pad here that I'll be using for some of my paint. So I'll try and keep this in shot as much as I can. So everyone's got their own method of painting. I like to I'll use this as my palette. I don't have a palette on me at the moment. Now I'll just show you some of this paint. So I'll just put a few drops on there. I'm just going to push it around a bit. You see how, even though it's yellow, it looks fairly orange, but then when I paint it out like this, you can see how it lightens right up, and when I get to there, when it's quite thin, it's yellow. So you get that contrast from a deep colour all the way to quite a light tone and everything in between. So you get that mid-tone and you get your deep colour in the recesses where it pools, and then where it thins out you get that lighter yellow. And I'm going to be painting it over the top of the pumpkin portions. I'm going to try and avoid some of the teeth and other details and that kind of thing. But also the other good thing about this particular paint is that you don't need to finesse it. You just paint it over one layer, and that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, clean my brush there. Okay, so that's not quite finished. I want to do a little bit more on that one, but it just shows you how just with one coat of that, and obviously it's looking a little glossy at the moment because it's still wet, so I'm going to let that one dry for a little while, and then I'll come back and maybe do another layer. But you can see how the misted yellow dip gives it that yellowy kind of pumpkiny look, a bit of a sickly pumpkiny look, yeah, I'll be coming back to do a little bit more in a short while, and once it's dry you'll be able to see how some of those areas really pop. Alright, back again for round 2 with our dipping inks. You can see here the little pumpkin that we've done. He's dry and we're getting some lovely contrast on there. And as you could see before, that was with one layer of paint. Just one layer of paint got all of that beautiful contrast. So admittedly, there was some black and white in there already. It was painted in that monochrome, but just one layer of paint and we've got this lovely little pumpkin that's contrasty and lovely and detailed. He's a bit washed out, maybe a bit more yellow than orange. I did use a yellow colour, but I thought this was going to come out just a fraction more yellow than it actually did. Now I'm going to move to a different one, and it's this one here. That is the Green Stuff World dipping ink in Hulky Green dip. So this is going to do exactly the same thing, and I'm going to use that on a few other small details. Let's have a look. So same as before. You can see it there. And I'm just going to, it's quite a deep green. Pull it away from there and it gets a little bit lighter. And you drag it even further and it gets quite thin and quite light. So you get that deep tone all the way to a mid-tone, the regular colour, all the way to quite a light tone there. So yeah, as I said, it's a water-based paint. It's got lovely abilities to run into all your crevices and everything like that. I'm just going to use this on a couple of key spots. Just here, that little stem. So the natural shadows and everything that I have there are all going to be useful. There we go. And I'm going to use it on the claws. Now, I'm going to pick out a couple of these little barnacle-y bits. I did those in the orange, so a little bit of the green is not going to be a big problem. And I may go over those a little bit with something else a bit later, maybe a little bit of a browny type colour just to make them a little bit different. But we want our pumpkin looking a little bit interesting. So it just goes on so easily, this paint. Some of these little sort of stipply areas in here coming off his base there. A few bits underneath. And I want to do some of these bits here too. It goes on so easy. So I'll miss some on the tail here. Oh, get that back into shot. I also want to do just a tiny little bit just on some of these deeper parts of the teeth. Not all of the teeth, not the whole teeth, but just some of the little, where the teeth stem from. Just to give it a bit more character. And yeah, there we go, just a little bit of extra. Now, just a couple of little things. He's got some jewels around his teeth, and on that part of that little headband thing, I'm going to do those in a very particular paint. I've picked out one over here. It is the, again, the Green Stuff World Chrome Metal Tin Plate Chrome. So I'm just going to give that a quick shake. I'm just going to do a little bit of highlights on this one. More than anything else. Now this one is not water-based, it's actually alcohol-based. It's a beautiful piece for kind of jewelry and that kind of thing. I'm only painting it on the very highlights because what I want is for it to look like it's shiny jewelry on this little beastie, to contrast from his actual skin, but not lose the contrast and the shadows sort of around the jewelry, without, you know, having to put a wash on it or anything like that. You can see there, he's got a shiny little tooth there. Shiny ring around his tooth. And I'm going to put some on these rings just here. Got some rings there. And more or less, there is my fancy little finished pumpkin. I'm going to just move my palette out the way and make sure I've got that nicely in focus. And there is my little cromlech pumpkin, all nice and colourful and contrasty, and showing you what you can do with the dipping inks, and just a few minutes of paint and the dipping inks, like these ones here by Green Stuff World. Absolutely fantastic for army painting, your miniatures, for doing things at speed. You can do whole armies, water-based, non-toxic, very effective, very colourful. No worries.